guys, if you can hear me on the live. We have again, for some reason, have had an absolute meltdown live with the starting of the show. I'm not sure really what is happening. I'm so sorry. I'm going to wait for everybody to catch up to this stream because I had to start a whole new stream. And yeah, it's a pain in my ass because we had 30 of you guys in the last room. It was annoying. Alright, let me do this. Oh, such a bummer. Such a bummer. Boy, oh boy, you guys. I apologize immensely. Silly Goose, thank you for being here. I have no idea what the hell is going on with this chat or with this show start. The show starts have been so rough with this OBS. It's killing me. I've tried everything, you guys, and I thank you for your patience. It is the most annoying thing as a viewer. It's the most annoying thing as a host, but I appreciate the patience and the love. I'm gonna go ahead and just delete this last stream forever and get this new one started. Wait for you guys to get in here. I'll give the stream a couple more minutes while we're waiting. Let me go ahead and switch cameras here so you guys can see my face. You guys, thank you so damn much. Thank you so damn much for being here. Again, sorry for these technical difficulties. I have asked everyone. I have tried everything. I'm not sure what's happening. I don't know if it's OBS. I don't know if it's Restream. I'm having a hell of a time, but again, I appreciate the patience. I appreciate the understanding. I want to say hello to Silly Goose, Swink McLeod, Grant Lavac, Men in Black at Work. Yeah, probably. Enzo Surreal, Take Two. Hello, Simon Fly. Welcome, guys. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it. We have a really fun guest today. We're going to get into all sorts of stuff. And we have we've got some stories I'm sure to swap as well. Thank you for being here, UAP Chinese balloon lover. Truly a pleasure when I see that name come up in the chat. Dana Shadell are one of our members here on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here, which reminds me, you guys, we got a new YouTube member, local 556 at OEFTF11. Thank you so much for joining the YouTube membership, you guys. It's a great way to support the show if you haven't already. If it's your first time here, wait till the end of the video to decide if you like the show. If you do, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and of course, ring the bell. That way, when I do 3 different streams in 10 minutes, you'll get this really annoying bell on your phone to let you know to come to these streams that don't work. So, yeah. So look forward to that when you ring the bell. If you want to support the show outside of those 3 things, you could do like Dana does. You could do like Local 556 just did and become a member of the YouTube channel. Or even better, check out our Patreon because a higher percentage of that donation goes to the creator. So check out the Patreon. For as little as $1 you can support the show, and you can go really crazy on that Patreon. So enjoy. All right, now that is out of the way, let me go ahead and bring down the tunes. Shall we? Let's do it. Okay, so never had Thin Lizzie Borden on the show. We have talked a few times back and forth on social media. And there was a couple of things that she had said in a recent stream here on the show that made me go, huh, that's interesting. Let's dive into that. Let's see what kind of stories we could swap. She's a really, really funny lady, a very hell of a researcher, and friend now of the show. Without further ado, let us bring on Miss Thin Lizzie Borden. Hello, my lady. How are you today? You're muted. Yeah, there you go. You got it. You nailed it.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm
Let me.
doing well. How are you?
I am doing really well. I'm hanging in there. I was saying
Hmm.
earlier we were just sort of catching up a little bit behind the scenes,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Hmm.
just doing a whole bunch of sketch comedy out here in LA, and life's good. I've been really busy, been working a lot, but
Hmm.
everything is well, and you are well as well. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything is so far so good. It's been a rainy a few days in a row here in Colorado, so
Mm.
it's definitely a little gloomy. But other
It
than that, so far so good.
better rain than snow, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yeah.
Is
I
it a
come
cold rain
from.
right now?
Yeah. It's
Hmm.
well. It's not that cold rain. Well, I was gonna say to me it's not that cold, but it's like in the 60s and drizzly, so it's the cold that gets to your bones if you have any aches or anything. I'm
Yeah.
from Minnesota originally, so I'm I don't miss the snow and all that. So better rain than snow. I agree.
Yeah. Well, it
Hmm.
seems like you grew up in, I don't want to say harsh conditions. What I mean, like from a weather aspect.
Yeah.
I know like Minnesota and Colorado are two parts of this country that can get brutally cold.
Hmm.
But you born and raised in Minnesota?
Yeah, I was born and raised there, and then I moved out here when I was 28. So yeah, 28
Why?
years I did
What
the
brought you out to Colorado?
um a couple different reasons. I felt like the mountains were calling me and
Oh,
sick of the weather. I do not miss that at all. And that's
yeah,
the thing. It's when the wind it just cuts right through you. And so
yeah.
definitely don't have to deal with that as much out
Well,
here as back home.
I've been to Minnesota, Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, uh, and I think Illinois. Well, Chicago. When I was in
Hmm.
Chicago, right when you're off the Great Lakes, they're not kidding. Like it is a windy town, and I think it was 11
Yeah.
degrees when I was there,
Hmm.
and the wind was 20, 25 miles per hour. So
Yeah.
it was absolutely brutal,
Hmm.
absolutely brutal. But at least with Colorado, I'm assuming it's not as brutal, but it's way prettier to look at. I mean, if you're gonna put up with the weather, might as well do it in Colorado, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing where I come from. Like I love to fish, and so I that was just in my family, and there's a lot of lakes, but it is a flat state, and so
Yeah,
yeah, if
like
you're
Florida.
having to deal with all seasons, it's nice to when you're driving, it's nice where it's like, yeah, you see the mountains and then it's snow covered. So it definitely, I appreciate looking at the scenery out here.
Lizzie, what is your
Hmm.
background? I'm curious.
For like
Yeah, what your nationality?
ethnic,
Yeah.
my mom is Aztec and my dad is Norwegian and Polish. So
Okay, yeah, okay,
I'm a
because I'm listening to your accent because
yeah.
this is the first time we've actually spoken.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I hear Minnesota, and I also hear a native American accent in there as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, now that you say your dad's Polish, was your dad a fresh off the boat immigrant like my folks, or had he been here a couple generations and sort of he's more of a Minnesotan than he is a
Yeah,
Polish immigrant?
my dad, my dad's side are the ones that are more fresh off the boat, but
Yeah.
my dad my dad and my uncle's name are in it was like the first Norwegian ship that came over and had a settlement, and it's called the Slooper. And
Hmm.
so there's a book about like all the genealogy of it. So um, my dad, but my grandma, so my dad's mom, she's the Polish one, and so I looked back just recently, and so I believe it's my great grandpa. So her grandfather uh, came over here, so that's the freshest.
You are as close to a founder as you can get to to as far
Yeah,
as American history or North American history
yeah,
would probably
North
be a better.
American. Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's wild. That is really cool.
Well, and on my Polish grandma's side,
Mhm.
and I know Enzo is going to be like, "Oh yeah," but I was 37 degrees related to the Queen of England, so I always like to joke that my reptile genes don't kick in until like 40 years old, and that my grandma was really cold. But that's the difference between having like a Mexican grandma and a Polish grandma. One's a little cold cooler and one's a little bit more babying, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think the part that I think stuck out to me, the first thing that I noticed about you was the chola side that came out. You know, I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this girl's a chola. This girl, you're not from East LA, but you got that vibe. You like,
I
you're very
I
chill,
definitely feel, well, I love lowriders also.
right?
And so and I love vintage, some retro aesthetic too. I always been drawn to certain aesthetics, but and then finding, oh, there's a whole lowrider culture, and I'm like, oh, like I would totally like blend in a little
Oh
bit
yeah,
if I
absolutely.
went, yeah, into LA. And I've watched some of the lowrider shows on YouTube that are in LA, and then they have like the Aztec dancers I've seen in one video. So I definitely part of me feels like I would have a great time there and fit in.
If you're in LA, I'll take you to both lowriders and the best tacos in
I
LA.
was gonna say good food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt. That I will definitely show you.
Oh yeah.
So okay.
Mhm.
So I am curious before we dive into the new channel that you started and everything. I was curious. How did you
Mhm.
first start researching this topic? I mean, I'm assuming a lot of this stuff. I'm assuming, just based off of your heritage and background and the part of the country you come from, that this was something already heavily seeped into your who you are, your culture,
Yeah.
the phenomenon as a whole. So I'm curious,
Mhm.
is that how you kind of got into it, or was it something else?
So basically, my Norwegian grandpa, so my dad's dad, saw a UFO when I think it was in the 80s, and so as a little girl, I was told that, and I guess that's all I've ever known is the paranormal, be it
Mm-hmm.
like ghosts and spirits and UFOs and aliens. And so I wasn't scared of like a boogie monster or anything like that. I was always like scared of aliens.
Me too.
But and so my grandfather, yeah, he didn't say anything to the family for a while, and so it was like my mom telling me, or the family members saying about, oh yeah, your grandpa saw a UFO. And so I've always been interested in that, and he loved sci-fi movies as well. So just that was the ordinary for me growing
Yeah.
up. So I've always been curious about it. And then, yeah, I've always just researched things, stories that I've found interesting. And especially with unsolved mysteries, that's something that I watched with my mom as a little girl. And certain cases always piqued my interest more than others.
Yeah.
Always like the UFO ones, or like the psychics uh, that well, have discovered, a missing person. Oh, unfortunately deceased. But yeah, I just was always interested in the unknown phenomena, I guess, since a young one.
Yeah. Well, since you shouted out Enzo, he is here. So hello, Enzo. Thank you for being
Yeah,
here.
hey Enzo.
And also Matthew Wright is here. It says Lizzie's good to see
Oh,
you, and
hey, yeah.
he's giving me shit about my music. And UAP Chinese balloon lover is from Little Falls, Minnesota. And
Okay.
Sheldon Lattimore says from Minnesota, she's right. It's hardcore, negative 60 degrees. Yeah, it is definitely tropical in Europe. I can't remember what part of the UK you're in, Simon, but yeah, anything is tropical compared to that. That is for sure.
Oh yeah.
So okay, so let's talk about
Hmm.
the new channel that
Yeah.
you're starting here, and sort of what you're focused on with that, and what got you
Hmm.
started doing. What made the switch from you to go to sort of the current state of stuff to the, like you were saying,
Hmm.
articles from the 40s and 30s and pre-internet, definitely.
I guess I've it's always I guess I've had a more fascination with retro cases versus what is going on currently in Congress and all that stuff. I've always been in the camp of the experiencers,
Mm,
uh, as opposed to, I guess, nuts and bolts trying to break down patterns or a quest for answers, so to
yeah,
speak. Um, but the love of the retro cases, and then I have a friend of mine, Steve Stockton. He is he was co-owner of Missing Persons Mystery Channel, and so they cover missing cases, and so he asked me to join the writing team, and so I of course had to be like, oh, if you need any UFO cases that overlap with the missing persons, let me know. And so he is also interested in more retro cases, like before Betty and Barney Hill. And
yeah,
so we decided to team up and make the new channel. And so right now we just have a bunch of uh, cheesy old sci-fi movies, which I love. So it reminds me of like the movies that would be on like Mystery Science Theater
yeah,
3000. And so we've talked about potentially figuring out a way where him and I can go back and forth uh, and have our own commentary to the videos. But we have that just for content right now. But I am doing research like through like the Swedish archive that's online, and looking through news clippings from the 30s, 40s, late 40s, and it's really interesting. As opposed to like cases nowadays where back then there's a lot of accounts of like their vehicles just stopping, um, and it's like you don't hear certain things in cases nowadays, or it's not as prevalent.
mm.
So yeah, I always interested in it. So you know um and I guess it's a little different than what people are doing also.
Yeah. Well, no, definitely. I mean, there's not a ton of people that go into these retro cases, but I mean, I know
Hmm.
Matthew Riot, who's in the chat now.
Hmm.
I consider him one of the best historians of this topic, because
Hmm.
especially when he dives into the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, I think, and I think this is where this will be an interesting conversation, because I, as an
Hmm.
experiencer, have had a real sort of, if we want to call it, come to Jesus moment, where I'm now doubting my experience and my memory and my what I
Hmm.
thought for sure was real for a really long time, over 30
Hmm.
years.
Yeah.
Um, And when you talk to guys like Matthew Wright and they dig into these historical cases, a lot of the times, even before Betty and Barney Hill,
Mhm.
you know, there were blue avians, and those blue avians derived from certain writings and
Mhm.
philosophers and occultists, even from that, from 20, 30 years, 40 years before
Mhm.
Betty and Barney Hill, and sort of that lore was there. If you were in the right places, you could find it. So,
Yeah.
are you having any moments like that where you're like, oh man, like, because something that I guess triggered me was something that you said was, I'm on the side of experiencers. So
Mhm.
I also want to be on the side of experiencers, but I'm having a very difficult time right now
Mhm.
doing that um, without reservations, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's totally understandable. Um,
Have you had any moments like that while you're doing research, or what's
I
your favorite
guess
case right now that you're working on?
um I guess I haven't had any moments like that. It's more so just yeah, going through uh and I basically it's like I'm reading just news, newspaper or magazines, and I guess if I see something interesting in the case, then
Mm,
that is something that I look for. But I guess yeah, I haven't had like the come to Jesus moment
yeah,
of
but no, and that's okay. I'm not.
of finding at least like the like what I'm seeing. It's like there's not really yeah, I haven't really noticed any patterns like that from
Well,
and I it's just the tip of the iceberg is what I'm there's so much on
right.
that archives where it's like looking through back and then it's it's kind of like okay, don't need that, don't need that, don't need okay, something interesting.
Yeah. Well, the one
Hmm.
thing you said was, like, for example, like things that don't happen anymore for some reason, like
Hmm.
the shutting down of the cars, right? Like
Yeah.
all of the electronics, the engine dying, and then all of a sudden the craft goes away and boom, they come back on.
Hmm.
It was immortalized in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounter of the Third Kind. That idea, that story, that lore.
Hmm.
Um, we don't hear about those anymore.
Yeah.
Why? Why don't we get? I mean, I know we just had a cattle mutilation thing in Texas about a month ago, or less than a month ago.
I know my mom sent me that and she's
Yeah,
like, "Do you think it's UFO related?" I was like, "Possibly, mom." And so I just thought that was cute for her to be like, send me a tidbit of information.
yeah. I'm interested to see if there were any actual. I can't remember the name of the specialists, but that basically do autopsies on animals and come to determination, and actually
Hmm.
look at the animal under a microscope and see, okay, are
Right.
these claims matching what's actually happening through the
Hmm.
body, or is this just normal decomposition in animals and yada yada. But
Right.
but I guess my point being is that we don't hear about them at the consistency that we were hearing about them in the 60s and
Hmm.
70s. The idea of being abducted, like we don't hear really about alien landings anymore. We don't hear about crashes anymore. We don't
Hmm.
hear about all of these really wild and sometimes very consistent stories where they pop
Hmm.
up throughout history quite a bit. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering, is that because their technology has changed and it's applying to us differently now? Is it because uh
Hmm.
the the stories just ran out of juice and so they just died out? Because and I'm like,
Hmm.
we don't get photos of UFOs anymore, which is wild to me considering everybody has a cell phone in their pocket now. So like these are the things where
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, I want to believe, but I feel like some of these patterns, where'd they go?
I have a story
Go
about
for it.
so my mom uh and I and my brother were camping. It's in southern Colorado. So it's in the San Luis Valley. And
Hmm.
so that's where a lot of cow mutilations. So it's kind of in that area. So uh, there's a UFO watchtower. And I know Enzo's like, Oh, she always talks about it because I do, because it's awesome. But
It sounds awesome.
we stayed there, and nothing. We didn't see anything for a couple days, and so when midday, we're driving away from the UFO watchtower, and my mom has her cell phone and is just taking a picture out of the window, like not at anything, but she took a few of them. And so she's in the back seat, and then I hear her say, "What is that? I think that's a UFO." And so I'm like, okay, and look at it. And in the corner of the cell phone picture, there was a silver craft.
Hmm.
Now, it was a typical, like the saucer, it was silver. And so I don't know why I didn't tell my mom, you should text me that picture, but she went to look at it later on in the same car ride, and then she's like, it's not there anymore. And so I asked her, I was like, did you erase it, or is it really gone? And so I was like, she's like, no, I didn't erase it. And so I hope my mom, you can't tell a Latina mom they're wrong, or anything like that. So I'm like, okay, I'm like, okay, mom, I don't want La Chancla, I don't want the flip flop.
Right.
But uh, at the UFO or the UFO watchtower, the owner, Judy, was saying that some people's, like, the technology messes up their person that I saw take pictures at night. He all of a sudden, his phone started to have like vertical lines up and down, and there was no reason for that to happen. It just, maybe it was location. But the owner did say that if they don't want something to be seen. And so I made a connection there, because I've always had that or that thought in the paranormal, like ghost pictures, because I've had pictures all of a sudden be erased from like my cell phone before. So, and I didn't necessarily, until doing the research probably a few years ago, that people have said that stuff, if they don't want it to be seen, it it won't be seen. So that was an example of my mom catching a UFO, and all of a sudden it deleted itself, if we're believing, of course, my mom.
Yeah. That's a tough one. That's a
Yeah,
tough
and
one.
that's the thing where it's like, yeah, who knows? But
Yeah.
mom knows best, and you can't
Yeah, yeah,
question.
no, it's always did you see the picture at all, or
Yeah,
oh,
I
so
had
you
it in my
saw it for
hand.
yourself, and she
Yeah,
had, what, man, you
yeah, it was on
should
her
have
cell
sent it to
phone,
yourself
and
right
she
then.
she and that's, yeah, I know, and that's where it's
No.
like, I don't know why I didn't. I think it was the just in shock, where it's like, that's that is there was no planes there. There was no reason for there to be something in the sky
What kind of camera
that
was
was
it?
metal.
It like a cell
Uh,
phone camera?
yeah, her cell phone camera. I don't. It was a few years ago, so
Okay.
uh, maybe a Samsung from like 5, 6 years ago.
Okay.
Hmm.
So not a totally crap camera. It might have been at least
Yeah,
yeah. There
yeah. It
was
wasn't.
the
It wasn't
camera.
a cricket. It wasn't a
Yeah,
cricket flip
okay.
phone.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it wasn't like one of the, for like a 2012, 6
yeah.
or 7 camera phone. That's, I
Hmm.
mean, it's interesting. It's
Hmm.
interesting. I don't know. I find it, I mean, I've got a picture on my phone that when I
Hmm.
moved into my apartment here in LA, I was looking up at what looked like an orb in the sky for a
Yeah.
while. I mean, now in retrospect, thinking about it, it could have easily just been a high altitude balloon.
Hmm.
But it was just interesting how I was sitting there, and I took a picture of it, and wasn't as clear as, you know, some of those old like 1940s photos.
Yeah.
But you could see it. It's definitely there.
Hmm.
It was funny. I was even asked, there was a guy working on the cable in the building. I was like, hey man, just so I'm not crazy, you see that, right? And he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally see it. So yeah, I mean, but like, it's not proof, you know, like for me anyway, it's not
Yeah.
something I would show people and be like, oh my God, look at this weird thing. Just because I
Right.
don't understand it doesn't make it, you know,
Hmm.
totally mysterious. But I'm curious to know because the reason why I wanted to talk to you is because
Hmm.
you've been watching my show lately, which is cool. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
And you had mentioned something because I think Contact in the Desert had come up, and we were also talking about Space Out Radio or something like that.
Hmm.
And you had mentioned, oh yeah, I was at Contact in the Desert, and I saw Sean Cahill yelling at uh Linda who
Melinda
Melinda
Leslie,
Leslie,
I think.
Melinda
Yeah.
Leslie. And you were like,
Hmm.
man, that's really weird. So that also got me thinking of some other spaced out radio stories and Contact in the Desert. And then I heard Jamie and Bree were like not allowed to hang out with the crew. And I was like, really? I didn't hear about all this. So I'm
Hmm.
curious, like, what was your experience like at last year's Contact at the Desert? Because I know you were out there and it looked like you guys were having fun, but when everybody came back from that, I not only got stories from you guys, but I also got
Hmm.
stories from Dave Scott and Nicole
Hmm.
Sakic. And
Hmm.
so I'm just, I just was like, okay, let's talk. Let's swap some stories and see
Hmm.
if we could get to the bottom of some of this. Because the other story that I have also had to do with Sean Cahill. So that's why I was like, oh, okay. I gotta talk to Lizzie and see what her perspective was on this,
Hmm.
and kind of, you know, let's just chat it out and see where we go with it.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
that was and I think Enzo might have been there too.
yeah.
But I am
It was Dave's
someone.
Vegas meetup, according to I believe it's Jamie or Bree. She
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
in
it
the in.
was.
Okay, so it was a desert
Yeah.
meetup. It wasn't Contact in the Desert, so I had
Yeah,
that
it was
part wrong.
last year's Vegas, but um in a hallway, yeah, Sean Cahill is raising his voice at an older woman, and so that to me, I was raised different, I guess. And I just found that very it just spoke of the guy's character. And so I'm like, I don't know necessarily who this person is. Like, it's like I didn't I'm not I don't I'm not someone that fawns over someone in the UFO community because X, Y, and Z. Like
Right.
I'm good at reading people, and so I didn't know. I'm like, okay, I he's a person,
Yeah.
but
It was something that you saw where you were like, "Oh, that's not
yeah,
right."
right. And that's the thing where it's not done in anywhere in seclusion. Like he had no issue raising his voice and yelling at her. I don't know what about necessarily.
You
Um
didn't happen to catch any of it, huh? As far as what he
and
was upset
no,
about?
and that's the thing that like I was asking like a couple other people there where it's like why would he be yelling at her? And I don't it could have been over terminology.
You
I'm
weren't the
not
only
sure.
person who saw this, right?
I no, there was I mean the live show was going on and they were doing it uh outside of the room. So
So
in the
okay,
hall.
so there was a live conference happening
Hmm.
in was it a big room or in the hotel? Oh, it's just a conference
I
room, normal
Yeah,
conference room.
conference room.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
But
in the middle of
yeah,
this, what does he walk over to her and say, "Okay, come here, let's talk outside," and then they go outside and you guys can hear him yelling through the wall, or are you outside of the conference room and kind of
I
walking by?
I went to the restroom and so I, you know, uh walked past them. And so that's what caught my attention. Was I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know. It just, yeah, piqued my interest, and walked right past them and walked right past them to go back into the conference room. So I don't know how he approached her. I don't know if she approached him. I don't know necessarily what they were talking about, but it definitely was something where, what were they talking about? Or
Hmm.
that's where I'm like, maybe it's terminology. I don't, yeah,
Was
it's hard to,
Was Melinda barking back, or was she kind of
uh, she
just taking his
was
beratement?
she was talking to him.
Yeah,
So she had a voice, but she
yeah,
wasn't, she, her voice wasn't matching his, and it
right.
wasn't, you know, it wasn't, the volumes weren't raising,
There was a
you know.
definite status, and he had higher status. It seemed like to you, at
Yeah.
least
And
from
or maybe he thought that she was someone in the military, you know, that he can raise his voice and talk down to.
yeah.
But
Did you ever
yeah,
talk to Melinda about it?
no, I didn't. And so, and that's where I'm like, oh, she's not gonna, if I talk to her afterwards, I'm like, she's not gonna know who I am. But,
Yeah,
you know, retrospective, it might have been nice to, you know, make sure that she was comforted
yeah.
also,
I
you
mean,
know.
I know Melinda's been on my show a few times,
Mm-hmm.
and man, even when I was at my most ardent belief, I still had a hard time accepting the claims that she was making. But with
Yeah.
all of that aside, she is a
Mm-hmm.
really nice lady. A
It,
really
yep.
genuinely just, I would love to go out to Sedona and do one
Mm-hmm.
of her UFO tours. I know
Yeah.
I'm not going to see any UFOs. There might be, I might not know what they are. So technically speaking, yeah, okay, maybe I might see some UFOs, but I don't think they're alien
Mm-hmm.
controlled UFOs. But I think it'd be hella fun. I think she'd be a
Yeah.
really great person to engage with while on the
Mm-hmm.
tour. Um,
Yeah.
I have a place in my heart for Melinda Leslie. I really do.
Mm,
Even though
yeah.
I think the things she espouses and believes are sometimes crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Definitely. I mean,
but that
I
doesn't mean
agree
she
with you.
deserves to be.
Where,
Yeah, she doesn't deserve to be spoken down to like that by a
yeah,
former
and
basic
that's,
drill sergeant.
yeah, and that's where, um, I, and that's where they're in the community. There's so many different people with different theories and everything, and you can respect people that don't have your same beliefs. And so I just saw, you know, all that aside, yeah, she is an
What
adult that doesn't necessarily deserve that. And so that's
what
what
was
I
what was the
saw.
atmosphere like after that happened? Were people like, oh, did a lot of people see it happen, or
I
was just a few?
I mean, maybe it's hard to say how many people, if you could hear or not,
I guess my
but
question is, was it kind of like what I mean, did you get the idea of like, was everybody going, holy shit, man, did you hear Cahill yelling at Leslie in the hallway, or were there
not
was it, you know, only a couple people
not
were like,
necessarily.
okay,
But,
okay,
and that's the thing where, if you know, say if someone opened the door to go in and out, they were right in front of the doors in the hallway, so people could have heard.
yeah,
But I don't think I don't think it was a wave of, it wasn't it wasn't seas of whispers or anything like that.
yeah.
So I just went out and I passed them twice. So that's, you know, how I think I caught on to it.
Enzo said, while I didn't talk to Cahill at that Vegas meetup, my impression I got off him was being very arrogant, in caps, very
Yes.
arrogant.
Yes. Exactly. And that's, um I didn't I didn't talk to him. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't go up and try to schmooze or any, you know, and that's the thing where people act like certain people in the community are rock stars. And it's like, Enzo and I were not one of those people. And
Yeah.
so I agree with Enzo because it's someone who has, yeah, arrogance and uh thinking, I guess, that they can get away with whatever, treating people certain ways too. But
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
really, really arrogant and yeah.
yeah. Okay, well okay, so before I get to my next question, Mostly
Mhm.
Space asks,
Oh
Lou,
yeah.
didn't Cahill also say that Mellon being on the big phone home would be like him speaking? Yes. He said that Mellon coming to the big phone home would be the equivalent of the dean of Harvard making a graduation speech for a kindergarten class. That's what he said to me at a meeting for the first big. It was the first and only meeting we had. After that, they basically just stopped talking to me. And when I say they, I mean Cahill and pretty much everyone else that was in that meeting.
Hmm.
Eventually stopped talking to me completely. Um, so the next question I had was, and just to be clear, I also get the vibe that he's an arrogant person, very arrogant person.
Hmm.
And if you read any of the things that Jeremy McGowan has wrote and the things
Hmm.
that he quotes Sean Cahill saying, especially when it comes to David Fravor, yeah,
Hmm.
he doesn't sound like a very nice guy. And he's even admitted to that. He's said that he was not a very nice guy and that he's gone through some. He went to the military because he was an asshole. Like he
Hmm.
said that. So it's interesting that then I hear
Hmm.
this story from you. But before we get to the next sort of Cahill
Yeah.
connection on that, what else went down at that desert event hosted by
Hmm.
Space Out Radio? Was there anything else that stuck out to your mind that you were like, oh man, that's fucked up? What's going on there?
Um,
Because
no, that.
I guess the thing that I
Mhm.
think of is I don't know if Bree or Jamie ever said this to me, but I had heard in passing somewhere, maybe they did
Mhm.
say it to me, that they went to the event in support of Spaced Out Radio, and then when they got there, they weren't like let in. Is that right? Do I have that wrong?
No, I was there. I was there with them, and they went to the live show. They went to um all the all the parties and everything. And
Yeah.
Enzo was tagging along with us, and so it was sometimes like Jamie, the other Brie, and me, and Enzo, and I think someone else, you know, hanging out. And so there wasn't any. I if I wasn't told about any people not to let in, but
Okay.
yeah, they
Okay.
were
Yeah.
given swag. They were given swag bags, I believe,
Okay. Yeah. No,
at
that's what I
the live event. Hmm.
wasn't sure if I'd had that right because I remember Bree streaming from the event and I would watch the streams and it looked like you guys were having a blast.
Yeah, no, it was fun. We had a good time. And Enzo made one bank out there, and so it was
Yeah,
a good
he won like
time.
a he
I
won
had a
like a
good time, except for seeing that.
that
Yeah,
moment.
he won a lot. He won a lot, and he said that. Um, well, I do card readings,
Hmm.
tarot cards, and oracle readings, and so before the trip out here, out to Vegas last year, I guess I said something about money, and when we're out there, and it was always when I was neck near him, he, yeah, won almost like $3,000. Sorry, Enzo, I'm gonna rat out how much, because I help, and that's where it's yeah, witches are, sometimes witches are your friends. We're good luck. So I I was around Enzo when his winnings went on, so it was a fun time.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I am the thing. I guess that I was the reason why I thought about Space Area because we were talking about it at the
Mhm.
time. Then you told me you had mentioned that Cahill clip, and then I was like, man, that got me thinking to a story that Dave Scott and Nicole Sakic called me about, and they
Mhm.
were really concerned because they had heard how my meeting at the Big Phone Home went down with Cahill and this promised team of people that were also supposed to be there, that most all of them didn't show up except for Cahill and it was Jake Mann, and that was it. Maybe one other person.
Mhm.
But the people that were promised didn't show up. And then when we started the meeting, it was just kind of like, you know,
Mhm.
almost feeling like I was Belinda Leslie a little bit. I mean, I wasn't being berated, but I was definitely being
Right.
spoken down to and sort of put in a place. And I was like,
Mhm.
all right, well, I'm just going to continue doing what I think is, the right thing here. And
Yeah.
so when they called me, they were sharing their concern
Mhm.
with and about Sean Cahill. Because
Mhm.
there was, and I don't know if people remember this out there at the time, but a few months ago, uh, Science Bob McGuire had a sort of a confessional moment on a live show for Spaced Out Radio, talking about a meeting that was going down, and that someone within this structure of this meeting that was supposed to happen
Mhm.
completely derailed it, and it looked like on purpose. And they couldn't
Mhm.
figure out why. And so when that
Mhm.
happened, I got a phone call going, hey, that whole, sock puppet thing, the whole Big Phone Home thing, the whole, meeting of the minds thing, a lot of those things are very familiar to exactly what just happened to us. But it
Mhm.
was a little more devious.
Okay.
And so the reason why that event struck me was because at that event,
Mhm.
Sean Cahill apparently was spreading some really, really nasty rumors about Dave
Mhm.
Scott. And
Yeah.
this meeting that had went south had happened around the same time of this desert thing, or
Mm.
before. I'm not sure the timing of it, but
Mhm.
the idea that there was supposed to be a meeting in
Mhm.
Canada with scientists and journalists and
Mhm.
military people, being Cahill, Lou Elizondo, and Chris Mellon. And
Yeah.
there was supposed to be this meeting, and they were supposed to approach Canadian Parliament and
Mhm.
kind of give them a presentation of how to discuss this within Parliament to get sort of the same legislative stuff rolling in the
Mhm.
Canadian Parliament as they've got going on down here.
Mhm.
And so Nicole Sakic
Yep.
and uh, uh, who's the
Dave. Dave
not
Scott.
Dave, the researcher
Thanks.
that she's really tight with,
Oh, Cameron.
Cameron,
Grant
Grant
Cameron.
Cameron. I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
his name just slipped my brain. So
No, you're
she
good.
had written a presentation with Grant Cameron,
Mhm.
and it was a very let's say esoteric approach, but just a way to explain this to them without it being a scary threat thing. And
Mhm.
Cahill basically came in and was like, scrapped it, rewrote the beginning of this presentation, and it was very geared toward military. And I think the sticking point for Nicole and for Dave was, well, this, you can't do it this way because there can't be a military attachment to this legislation, because in Canadian Parliament they do not allow that to happen. You
Mhm.
can't have these two things existing at the same time when you're
Yeah.
proposing legislation. It cannot have any military ties to it whatsoever. And they ignored that advice, and they went into, I'm not sure if the meeting happened. I can't remember if the meeting happened.
Mhm.
Um I want to say it didn't, because basically that presentation was there and everybody's like, what the fuck? Like, this is not what we agreed to. And
Mhm.
then none of the people showed up that were supposed to be there, and the whole thing fell apart. And it
Mhm.
seemed like it was designed to fall apart, and it was
Hmm.
frustrating on purpose. And then after that is when the rumors started being spread about Dave Scott from this Cahill thing, and they
Mhm.
were calling me like freaking out. They were like a little scared about it. They're like, this is really fucked up. Like, we did all this work, we did all of this stuff, only to
Yeah.
be undercut and sort of railroaded by Sean Cahill in the last second. You know, we're about to cross the goal line and they kind of just self-sabotaged. And then that's when Bob McGuire lost his shit and they were really pissed off. And the thing that kind of pissed me off or kind of rubbed me the wrong way was after this nasty, very specific rumor, and God, I really want to tell everybody what it was because it's so nefarious. It's like, but it's not my business, and I don't want to tell people private information about Dave Scott. That's nobody's right to know. But the nature of that rumor was so nasty and just terrible at its core. And here we are 6-7 months after that's happened and after the whole desert thing and him yelling at Melinda Leslie and the whole blow up of this meeting and the spreading of this rumor. Here we are 6-7 months later and Dave Scott is promoting the Sean Cahill woo train and the sort of that whole government narrative. And I had a private conversation with Dave and I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why would you support these guys who spread these rumors about you and undercut something that was important to you? Why would you continue to work not only with them, but promote and support their stuff? And he's like, you know, and I'm paraphrasing here, this is not the exact quote, but he basically said, you know, we just got on 3 new radio stations, Lou. Like, why am I going to rock the boat, man? Like, he needs the access. And he'll never publicly admit this, I don't think, because he knows if he does, the access will probably be taken away from Spaced Out Radio, and they'll never get to talk to Lou. They'll never get to talk to Sean. They'll never get to talk to Chris Mellon. You know, of course, they want those interviews so bad, and they are coming because a book is coming. And, you know, that's kind of what they held over my head, too. It was like, well, if you keep pushing, we're going to take the access. And I think Dave got to that point, and he's like, I'm just going to play ball, man. Look, the show's doing great. We're growing faster than we ever have before. Why am I going to call this nefarious behavior out and tell people, like, what the hell's going on behind the scenes? Like, it's not top secret. This was a top secret information. Like, this is a public, like, you know, like, there's no government strings attached to these stories. You can believe me or you can not believe me. I really don't give a shit. But that's what happened from my perspective. And you know, I wanted to tell that story because I know it took a lot of guts to just tell us a story about Melinda Leslie and Sean Cahill, because I know you're going to catch a lot of flack for that. I was like, man, I think it's time to tell this story. I think it's time to let people know that this happened behind the scenes. That's the reason Bob McGuire was pissed. That's the meeting that totally took a dump. And they didn't say anything, not because it was the right thing to do, but because they were scared to lose access, because they didn't want to lose any fans, because they were growing. And the second that you say something like this, they would lose subscribers, they would lose support, they wouldn't be as popular, I guess. You know, it's not the popular thing to do.
And that's it. It just shows how in the community, it's like certain people, it's like if you question them, so many of their simps attack you for speaking out against. So it's self-preservation also, I can imagine.
Well, did you hear anything? Did you hear anything like what I just said behind the scenes? Have you heard any of that?
No, I haven't. No, there's probably a lot that I wasn't privy to knowing, and so I didn't know about that, but I am following along with you, so it makes sense.
Well, I was just kind of bummed because, I mean, like, I love Nicole, and I think to me she's the most level-headed person in Spaced Out Radio, and she's cool as hell.
I love Nicole.
I love Nicole.
She is awesome.
But when I asked Nicole,
Mhm.
dude, what's the deal with Dave? Like, why are you guys not talking about this?
Mhm.
There's no real good answer from her. And it's kind of a bummer because again, it's like people have got to stand up to this on their own and
Right.
not be afraid to say something, but it's like people are genuinely afraid to say anything.
Yeah.
And I can't understand it. And when I heard that story, when you had mentioned that in my chat, I was like, you know what, that's bullshit. Like that needs to be called out.
Yeah.
And so, I just think it took a lot of guts to say that publicly. And so that's why I wanted to
Thank
explore it with
thank
you
you. Yeah.
and then also back you up
Mhm.
and tell the story that I've been
Yeah.
holding back for the last 6 months, because at the time it
Right.
was comforting to hear from Dave Scott and Nicole, hey, we saw
Mhm.
what happened to you and it just happened to
Mhm.
us. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, wow, I can't wait. Okay, well, when are you guys going to say something? Like, when are you guys going to back me up instead of having me sit out here by myself? Like, please say something. And nothing. They
Yeah.
didn't say anything. And why? Because they want to protect access? Not good enough. Like, it's not good enough for me. As much as I love them,
Mhm.
and they're nice people, and I'm not trying to get,
We got
do a personal attack on
we
Spaced Out
got
Radio
that
here.
we got that fiery blood in us.
Yeah. Well, it's that Latin blood, right? Like, we don't like to be messed with.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's where my Nordic uh calms me down a little bit in the moment, but then that's when the I can take so much. I'll be calm, I'll take so much, and then
Right.
that's where the chola sees I'm a chola carry, like with the movie Carrie. That's where
Yeah.
it's like it's, yeah.
No, I love it. I love it. I mean, yeah, I, I felt a little fake having sat on that story after reading what you wrote in that chat, and I was like, shit, man, like that was pretty ballsy. And you know what? Let me talk to her. Like that's why I reached out to you immediately as soon as it happened. I was like,
Hmm.
I want to hear this story. I want to hear this berating of Melinda Leslie by Sean Cahill at a
And
UFO conference, like of all people to berate. Like,
yeah.
and the reason why I wanted to talk about it is to me, it shows a pattern of behavior. It shows a
Yes.
pattern of behavior from this person who is one of the closest. I mean, I guess you could consider him a right hand man, like
Yeah.
of this whole process, and it's just a pattern of him being incredibly abusive and he's even admitted to such, like where he's
Hmm.
been like admitted to, like, yeah, I was an asshole, I was a real dick when I was in the Navy. He was the police, he was the cop on the boat, he was the
Yeah.
guy arresting drunk sailors, like he was the sheriff on the ship.
Yeah, that boosted. I wonder if he was bullied as a kid because now he has the need to get, to do that to others. Where
I
it's
mean,
like, you know, I'm thinking of it. What's wrong? What issues does he have to make him act that way?
yeah. Nicole's here. Hey, Nicole. Grant, she says, Grant Cameron and I discussed our pieces a few times on his White House UFO YouTube channel. Hi, y'alls. Let's see if she says anything else here. I heard there's something going on here. Yeah, a little something. We're talking about the story that you and Dave called me with a few months back about Sean Cahill spearheading your whole Canadian Parliament UFO meeting and how he was spreading NASA. I didn't say the rumor, but how he was spreading a really nasty rumor about Dave Scott and trying to cause division within the Spaced Out Radio team or community. And so, Lizzie had, well, just go back and watch the show. Go back and watch the show. You know, we're seeing patterns here. Seeing
Hmm.
patterns of someone who likes to talk down to people and
Yeah,
bully people and
disrespectful.
bully people.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, it was, she said it was a similar situation. And I hope that you guys tell that story. I want
Mhm.
Dave Scott to tell that story. I want Nicole Sakich to tell that story. I want Grant
Mhm.
Cameron to tell that story. I want to know all the details because I know there's more people that were supposed to be in a meeting. I know the names of everyone else there. One journalist who asked me not to put his name in this, and I won't. Just out of respect for him. But yeah, I mean, he even saw this as a red flag. He's like, this is just so weird. And it's that, like, these meetings, these failed meetings that we hear about all the time, or these derailed
Mhm.
meetings. We've heard them from me. We've heard them when I just told you about the Space Radio one. We heard Eric Weinstein talk about meetings that were promised that never were
Mhm.
delivered on.
Mhm.
We see how Bob Lazar, George Knapp, and Jeremy Corbell have responded to the whole Eric Weinstein. Well, Nicole said it was Daniel Otis. That's the journalist I was talking about. Nicole just said it.
Hmm.
So like I find it confusing that we're
Mhm.
propping up this story, we're propping up these people, and we're having, the Matt Fords of the world come on the show and sell this bullshit that is coming directly from the mouths of the guys who are spreading rumors about you and being bullies to Melinda Leslie in hallways at UFO cons. Like, it's just confusing, and I'm sorry, I have to call this shit out. Like,
Mhm.
it's not cool. It's not cool that people have these stories and are afraid to tell them because of whatever the reasons are: loss of access, they don't want to be bullied by online larpers, or maniacs. They, like, there's so many reasons. But I hope that you sort of, you know having some moxie and telling that story inspires other people to be like, yeah, I was there, I saw the same thing. I would love to have somebody else be like, oh, yep, I saw her berating her, or Melinda Leslie, maybe
Well,
even.
and that's where it's like, who knows? Yeah, who could have might have heard where when it started, when it originated. But
I'm dying to
yeah,
know
it
what
just
that
it
conversation was about.
yeah, and that's where it's like, I don't know what it was entailing, but I saw someone disrespect someone else, and that didn't sit right with me. So,
So
um,
Cahill and Melinda were arguing about my labs. Um,
mm.
that's interesting. Yeah, because I've argued with Melinda about my labs too, but I wasn't yelling at her in a hallway or talking down to her.
Oh, that's
Um,
the
that's
okay,
the labs that break into
okay.
people's homes and make them think that they've had alien abductions when really they've been kidnapped by the government and run tests on and taken blood from
Hmm.
to see if they've actually been abducted by alien. It's a whole thing. Um,
Yes, and so that yeah, that I was wondering. It's like, were
she was
they? It's where I was like, terms, or I don't know, but yeah, that's interesting.
Hey, Nicole's here. Nicole, can I send you a link? You want to come hang out with us? Because I'd love to I'd love to have you on the show if you want to come talk about this, if you're available. If not, maybe we could do it next week. But I'd love to talk to you and poke your brain about this because clearly because she said she was pushing him about experiences. So I'm guessing that
Mm.
Melinda wants people like Cahill and Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo to really talk to the experiencers.
Mhm.
Like you said, like, you're on the experiencer side. They want to hear about the MyLabs. They want to hear about the reverse engineering. They want to hear about the alien
Mhm.
bodies that have been text. Well, Nicole, let's set up a
Mhm.
show. I want you to come talk to me. You don't have to do it today or tomorrow. Let's do it next week. Let's do it next Tuesday. But I want to start unpacking this. Oops, there goes my pen. I want people I want this to be out in the open, like, because I'm
Mhm.
sick and tired of being the only guy that's got the moxie to say anything other than Lizzie Borden here,
Well,
and Jeremy McGowan and a whole bunch of other people that have sort of
mhm.
have said, hey, something's wrong here, or I saw this, you know.
Well, that's I was on with Cambion, and we were watching one of Wilcox's videos, and I made some comment, and then the next video of Wilcox's, like, it's like he says what I commented about him, like, right away in the beginning. So I'm like, okay, I know he probably watched that.
Mm,
But and that's the thing where yeah, there are certain people that you have to call out because it's it taints the community. It has a ripple effect.
yeah. Well,
You know.
that's why that yeah, Cambian's doing. I have now I love Steve Cambion. I just can't believe I can't believe that just came out of my mouth. But it's been a wild, interesting interaction with that guy. But there's no doubt whether or not you like a show or you don't like a show, how he presents
Mhm.
it, whatever. The information he's putting out there is really good.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's just like believers have a bias, I think he also has a bias, and that bias is he thinks everyone is full of shit.
Hmm.
Like right from the go,
It's
especially if
I'm
you're
the
selling a narrative.
I'm part Polish, so it's
Yeah,
like I do some things resonate with me and him, but I can see what but that's the thing. It's the opposite of someone being so open minded, and it's being, I would say, maybe critical, but I can see where you're coming from too.
I will say I was about to ask you something, but
Mhm.
Matthew Riot says here, Matt, Cambion still supports a major fraud. What is that fraud? I'm not aware of it. I'm not aware of the fraud you're talking about. I'm interested. I could ask him about it, but I mean, the dialogue that we've had has been very, very interesting. Um, Let me see here. What am I missing? Did I miss anything? Sorry, I'm just trying to read
No, you're
comments
good.
here.
You're good.
Nicole says he does lose his cool and yell, then apologizes. I'm assuming she's talking about Sean Cahill, and she's got some crazy Cahill stories that
Hmm.
I don't want to say. It's up to her if she wants to tell him. I mean, to me, this is a story I feel like I can and should tell because it was so closely related to what I had gone through with those guys, and it was just
Hmm.
something that like it's again sets up a pattern.
Hmm.
Like, and now I'm not the
Yeah.
only one, and
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
that feels good, to know that there are other people experiencing these things, but
Well,
sometimes they
it's
need a
like,
little push.
or it's like, yeah, you're not crazy because it's like if everyone keeps silent, they're just gonna keep doing those actions and it's just going to keep getting greater. Like it's more detrimental every time, um, until they fall on their face or get, reality slaps them, to make them wake up. But
I got a Matt says to Google Cal Korf after the show, and he's a huge fraud. Is that the person that Camion is still kind of supporting? Um, I'm interested to know, but like that's why when you hear that whole part of Cambion when he's speaking sort of that when he's talking and that whatever he's talking about resonates with you and you're like, oh yeah, that is bullshit. That's the Polish
mhm,
side of me just calling out the bullshit. Like, I guess that goes back to my one of my earlier questions of like, do
mhm,
you ever have these moments of shit, what I'm researching might be just lore, might be just stories, and that's where it ends, even though they're
mhm.
compelling, even though in some cases there looks like to be proof, but I think we could both agree that whatever proof has been put on the table, it's not good enough yet to convince the world that this is a fact.
Yeah.
So, like, though, do you have those moments, and what keeps you coming back to the like, this is real?
I guess, well, I have my own experiences, and
Have you shared those before?
um I think I have, but I haven't done any regression or anything. So it's trying to decipher, I guess. If that's the thing, I'm skeptical, but I have an open mind.
Yeah.
So it's the questioning myself where
Mm.
was I a little kid scared of a movie that my mom showed me that had aliens or X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
So uh every, like, for regression, be it, for alien abduction, be it any other thing, uh it has to be when the time is right, and or else you could,
Can,
maybe pull a thread that you're not ready to.
well,
So
can I just
it,
say,
mhm,
and I hope this is not insulting when I say it.
no.
Sometimes I just say things and I just say them. But
Mhm.
please don't get a regression.
Yeah,
Like
no,
to
and
me,
that's
there's nothing that good that ever comes out of regressions, and they're
mhm,
very unscientific, and there's no degree. Nobody has a
yeah.
degree in regressions. I think those are very dangerous places to go to because they can easily imprint things into your memories and
Mhm.
get you to believe a certain narrative that you think might or might not be real, and they just push you really gently in one direction, and before you
Mhm.
know it, you're telling people this is fact. And I
Yeah.
mean, for me, I've just started seeing a psychologist, and this is something
Mhm.
that we're just now like diving into.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that's the just talking about it, I think, is the best solution. But I think
Mhm.
when you start talking about regressions and things like that, that's where I'm like, as a friend, I would just say,
Oh,
please
oh yeah,
don't.
no, I'm not getting a regression.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I know of the dangers. Um, and yeah, even then, it's there's no 100% way to know. Even if you're
Yeah.
regressed and you have this, it's still, our minds can play tricks on us.
Definitely.
And so that's the thing where I but I don't know what's out there. I think there's a bunch of interesting things, and that keeps maybe my interest of finding out what's going on. And but that's I know I don't need the government to say, "Okay, disclosure, this is what it's like." I don't necessarily need that,
You don't
but
need. I well, look, I don't need it either, but I'd welcome
yeah,
it.
yes,
I'd be
exactly.
like,
Some
okay, cool. Like,
some some people are holding their breath for it
yeah.
because they're they need to be told by someone else how to
Well,
think or
I mean,
feel.
just coming because I think that was my perspective for a while, right? Was the whole
Hmm.
like, hey, if it's gonna come from somewhere, it's gonna have to come from the desk of the president of the United States, or it's gonna
Hmm.
have to come from some place of authority to elevate this thing from Travis Walton and Melinda Leslie and even Lou
Hmm.
Elizondo, and even Foo Fighters or Betty and Barney Hill. And Mostly Space has a comment here about Betty and Barney Hill and how
Hmm.
those regressions were impressive. I mean, I wish Matthew Rye was on the show right now because I know he can break down those regressions a lot better than I can, and
Hmm.
how you can go through those regressions and point to how those confessions, or however whatever you want to call regressions, link right back to cultisms and ufology and
Hmm.
wild thinking. And Betty, I think, to me, out of the two, Barney's the more impressive
Hmm.
of the witnesses or
Yeah.
regressor of the two,
Hmm.
because Betty, if I'm not mistaken, was into some pretty wild shit. She was already looking at, you know, uh, alien mythology and stuff like that. So, but for Barney, like, that was not his thing at all. And
Hmm.
the whole idea that they were an interracial couple in the 50s is also just another layer of why would these people
Yes.
say stuff like this at that time? And
Exactly.
I think I do agree with
Exactly.
Mostly Space, is that in that it is impressive, but for me it's a story. It's not something that transcends to a
Hmm.
place where the president is, you know, putting that on the table as like, hey, this is the proof that we've always been waiting for, that we're not alone in the universe and we're being visited by this unknown.
Hmm.
I if citizens could figure this out, I think they would have by now. If it's happening at the rate that people claim, like Melinda Leslie is saying, or even Lou
Hmm.
Elizondo, or some
Yeah.
pilots are claiming, even like they say they see hundreds of these things every day,
Hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, I I can understand why people would want this information coming from that place of authority, because it
Hmm.
just the the researcher aspect of this and the boots on the ground aspect, the citizen, the MUFONs, that
Hmm.
hasn't cracked it. It hasn't broken that level of
Yeah, there's.
acceptance, as
Hmm.
the moon is there, or the oceans are blue, whatever,
Right.
like whatever
Yes.
facts are, like we all need to
Hmm.
agree on this, and nobody can agree on this because there are no facts attached to this. It's very compelling. There's stories, there are
Hmm.
definitely data points,
Yeah.
but it's not enough. And so I guess I don't know if that sort of answers the perspective of why I think people are really hanging on to that perspective of, well, shit, it's got to come from the government. As much as I distrust the government, as much as
Hmm.
like don't want to believe anything the government says, right? Like
Right.
nobody, the government has a trust issue, a big trust issue, and this
Hmm.
UFO issue is not making that issue any better.
Right.
If anything, it's making it
Oh.
worse, so
Oh
but
yeah. Exactly. I agree 1,000% with that.
um hmm. This has been an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Why do you call yourself Thin Lizzie Borden?
Um, my last name, well, my given name is Bree Borden,
Mm.
and so my last name obviously is Borden, and so I merged the Lizzie Borden with the band Thin Lizzie.
Okay.
So it's a three. It's a
It's got it's got it's
three
a
level. It's a
yeah,
three level
it's
name.
a good nacho dip you got there. I like it.
Yeah, a three layer
Yeah,
bean dip.
bean dip. I dig
Yeah.
it. So
Hmm.
what are you working on now? What do you I mean, I know you got this new channel going on, but is there
Yeah.
anything specific that you want to tell the people about, where they can find your stuff? What you're
Yeah,
working
I
on?
would say saucer cult, and I can always
That's an interesting name too. When you had mentioned that to me earlier, saucer
yes,
cult.
saucer cult.
I love it.
Um, it rings back to the like the UFO madness, back in the day, the UFO craze madness. Uh, but you can check out. We have only old movies currently on there right now while I'm working on the more content videos. But Saucer Cult is where you can see me. And I do have a channel of my own that I do any card readings, and that is called Witch Please.
Witch, please. I love it.
Yeah,
How often do
yeah.
you do that show?
I haven't done it in a little bit. I was doing it on other people's channels for a while, doing the readings. So
Now
helping.
I know you
Uh-huh.
travel. At least, correct me if I'm wrong, but it
Hmm.
seems like you travel a lot around the country, going to cons and going to conventions and listening in on these conversations. What's your favorite one to go to? Which one would you recommend if you're going to go to one? Which
Well,
one would you hit up?
I guess I can say what I'm excited for this year
Yeah.
is going to the Roswell in I think late June. My friend Cheryl Costa is going to be speaking there,
Okay.
and I was planning on going anyway, so I get to meet her in person, and I am so excited about that. And I do see that I think Lou Elizondo, all those other people maybe speaking other days in that,
Hmm.
but I'm not going for that. I'm going to so I can meet Cheryl in
Yeah.
person because she's so sweet. We've done couple shows on witchcraft and any correlation between witches and UFOs. So and it's the fact that I'm in Colorado, so it's a short drive. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that one. Um, I guess it just depends on what your niche is
Yeah.
and where you're located, because that's the thing. There's Bigfoot. I mean, even in Colorado here, there's a bunch of different Bigfoot conventions, but I do love my gem and mineral uh, shows. So luckily there's a great one in Colorado here. So it's like I do more. It's like a lot of traveling throughout the state, kind of versus bi-coastal.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
one day, because I love San Francisco and I would love to hit up one in San Francisco. You know, I'll
Right.
add more underneath my belt as time
Uh,
goes on.
Anon ET says that they're in Fort Collins, north of Denver.
Okay, yeah.
So are you too far away from that? I don't want you to give away where you live, but
No,
but
I'm yeah, that the top half. Yep. Versus
right.
the lower, not the pants part of the state, not the lower pant, not the
Uh,
lower part.
Anon, if you're asking what con she was talking about, I believe you were talking about this year's Roswell conference, right? Which will
Yeah,
be in New
there's
Mexico.
yeah, New Mexico, I think, at the end of June. And I was going to say there was a Bigfoot convention in Estes Park
Okay.
just last month.
What do you
Or,
think?
and
Bigfoot's real?
one at,
What do you
there's
think?
another Bigfoot at a convention coming up in Pikes Peak, I think. I mean, who knows? That's
Mm,
where it's like, I'm open minded because of, I guess, the different indigenous cultures
mhm.
talk about something similar, but they're tribes that are not anywhere near each other. But yet, uh, so that keeps me having an open mind versus like, nope, nope, nope. I have an open mind, but I'm skeptical. So an open mind, but not so open that it lets, that your
Your brains
brain
fall out.
fall out. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
love that saying.
Yep.
I love that saying. Lizzie, thank you so much for being here. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks
I
for
really
having me.
appreciate you speaking
Mhm.
up. And
Thank
I
you.
had no
Yeah.
idea about this story. I did not hear about any of this. But when
Mhm.
I heard you say it, I was like, I know she's not lying. I like why? Why would she say something like that? It's
Yeah. And
and just the
that's
similarity, the status, the bulliness of it, the
his
just
air of,
the arrogance of
yeah.
it.
Hmm.
The arrogance of it, I think, is
Yeah.
kind of what rubbed me the wrong way. And I was like, well, if I know there's one thing Lizzie won't have an issue with is talking about this and talking
Hmm.
about what she saw. So I appreciate the temerity and the moxie and the bravery, even though,
Thank you.
I mean, like, what are we talking about here, right? Like, I mean, it's crazy, but like, yeah, like
Hmm.
just to see something that was wrong and say something. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you.
you know,
I
I
appreciate
hope
that too.
we maybe one day get Melinda Leslie's version of the story. I'm interested to
Yeah.
see if Nicole's going to come on the show because I would love to get Nicole's perspective on this. Maybe this
Me too.
conversation
And like I said, I only
inspires them to do
saw,
so.
I was one person that saw stuff just walking by. So who knows
Yeah.
who else, has more
Yeah.
information.
Well,
But
clearly Nicole does. Clearly,
yeah,
they were
yes,
arguing about my
we
labs,
learned
so
what the topic was.
yeah. So
So
it was, and
we're
I
putting our
think,
brains together.
well, it just, again, like, and I think of that conversation that Sean Cahill and Lou Elizondo had on the Theories of Everything show, where they're like, we want to destroy ufology. We're not ufologists. We basically hate this topic. We hate talking to you people. And
Yeah.
I think Sean Cahill hates talking to Melinda Leslie, hates
Oh,
talking to people like Melinda Leslie, where
yeah.
there is zero empathy and zero perspective that if you think I'm bad with my empathy and my perspectives, he's infinitely worse. And it's
Yeah.
not the first time that this story's come up, or this sort of these tales
Hmm.
of his arrogance are far and wide.
Yeah.
It's almost like a scroll that somebody travels from town to town and tells everybody what's going on. Like, at this point, like, let's talk about it. Let's put it out there, because a
Yeah.
lot of people are really hanging some big beliefs on everything that this person says. So
He's on TV, so whatever he
he's
says has to be
he's
true.
well
He's on the UFO shows.
he's helping influence lawmakers.
Yeah.
You know, he's helping
I
influence lawmakers, and he's helping secure tax dollars.
mhm. Yeah,
So I think stuff like this needs to be known. So I appreciate it. I really
definitely
do, because
does.
it gave me the bravery to tell my side and what I saw from sort of that time frame and
Hmm.
that moment there, and
Yeah,
hopefully this will inspire some more people to come out and tell their sides
right.
and their perspectives of the story. So I can't thank you enough. I hope you were the sort of, you might be the person that kind of kicked the door open on this a little bit. So I appreciate it. I really do.
Instead of, yeah, swinging an axe
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
to
And if
make
there's
way.
ever anything I can do, anything I can help out with, please, of course, my door is always open.
Cool.
I'm always
Yeah.
down to help a fellow Latina and actual Native American. So
Yeah.
we need more voices like ours in the community. Even though I think, safe to
Hmm.
say, based off this conversation, that we probably disagree on the phenomenon. We
Yeah, and that's,
and that's okay. Like, that's
oh
okay.
yeah.
Like, two people can still exist in the same space, and keep it respectful. But the questions,
Hmm.
I didn't ask you any easy questions today, and some of your answers didn't fulfill me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay,
Hmm.
because I know you're mature enough to handle it. So I like, kid, I appreciate you. I really, really do. I
Thank
think
you. I
you're
appreciate it too.
one of the coolest peoples around. So True Seekers is here. He says greetings and salutations. We gotta talk. We gotta get Matthew Riot, True Seekers, and me in a private convo and see if we can straighten this stuff out. Because
Add
I
me
don't
then.
know. I don't
I'll
know.
just get loud too.
Yeah, here I am starting more drama. There's nothing bad that's going on, but I don't know who this. Who was it that you said Ken something? Anyway, it doesn't matter. You guys, thank you so much for coming aboard and getting weird with us here on another episode of Blue Reviews. I want to say thank you to Lizzie Borden. I will be putting,
Thank
please,
you.
Lizzie, do me a favor. As soon as this
Mhm.
conversation's over, send me all your links so then I can put
Yeah.
it in the description below. So if you
Okay.
guys want to go check out her stuff, you can. Other than that, I'll see you all later, and I love you all. Thanks, Lizzie.
Bye.
Bye. Let me do this. What am I gonna do? All right. That's what I'm gonna do. There we go. I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna turn the music back up for you guys. Let's see. Turn the music back up. There we go. There we go. Enjoy that for a minute or two. People out there, thank you all so much for joining us. Again, if you loved the show, if you want to support the show, like, shares, and subscribes go a very long way. They help with the algorithm. And if you really want to support the show, check out the YouTube membership, check out the Patreon. Links are in the description. You guys, this was a very, very fun conversation, and I think an important conversation. So thank you for joining us. It was a blast. We'll see you guys soon. Not sure when, but soon. Love you all. Peace.